Hey everyone, it's W.E. DeCruz, Global Tech and Food Entrepreneur. Listen, I just touched down at our commercial kitchen, getting ready to help my husband package up some Cruz burgers. If you're not familiar with Cruz burgers are, we just launched a few months ago. We're a plant-based burger patty made from mushrooms, part of a larger mission to really create meat alternatives made from mushrooms. But nonetheless, the countdown is still on to the NADEC annual export conference in DC, May 19th to the 20th. And I'm super excited for this particular panelist that I got to check in on last week. He'll be coming all the way from South Africa. I like to think he's coming because of me, but no, he's really coming because of you. Coming to share all things U.S.-Africa trade and all the opportunities there are in that region for you to export your product or your service into Africa. Check out this interview.
Sudarkasa, I'm the CEO of Africa Business Group, and it's really a pleasure to join you.
Thank you, Michael. We're so excited to have you at the NADEC conference this coming May. I know you'll be speaking on the panel on U.S. and Africa. Michael, tell us a little bit about your work in Africa.
Sure. Africa Business Group is an economic development firm. We're based here in Johannesburg, South Africa, but continentally active. And a lot of our work focuses on strategy development for helping private sector stakeholders play a bigger role in the continent's development agenda and helping to facilitate public and private partnerships. We particularly like to work on projects in the agricultural sector because so many countries on the continent have agriculture as a large part of either their GDP or it's a major employer. We also see the need to work in the renewable energy space because half of the continent's 1.3 billion people don't have access to electricity. So from an economic development standpoint, that's a major challenge. And some of the areas that you might not think of as inclusive markets that we work in include tourism, particularly business tourism. And we've chosen that field because it's one where you can absorb a lot of young people. And I mentioned that it's a young continent, but it's also a continent where we need to create jobs. And with policy initiatives like AFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, there's going to be more travel around the continent as African business people try and get to know other markets than the ones that they're used to either in their region or pan-regionally as well. So helping facilitate fora for these learning events, these learning journeys is very important to us. And last two sectors that we look at, manufacturing and healthcare. So we're excited about companies off the continent who want to come into those sectors because there's tremendous need for partnership as the continent is a fast growing one.
Awesome. Well, you know what, Michael, that sounds like a lot of opportunities for U.S. businesses to do business in Africa. What's the one message you want to send across? Like, what's the one thing that we need to demystify for people who are looking to engage in the continent and the reason why they should attend the conference to learn more about U.S.-Africa trade?
I think the big thing for me is that the continent has a few things going for it that you don't always think about on the U.S. side. It is by far the youngest continent in the world, and it is one of the fastest growing continents in the world. And when you put it in a perspective of in the next 28 years, 1.4 billion new Africans will reside on the continent. And so we'll have close to 2.5 billion, 2.6 billion people on the African continent. That's a big market. And all of those people will need housing. They'll need access to electricity. They'll need consumer goods. So it really is a market that is, and the size belies the fact that it seems to still fly below the radar. Yeah. So many people, particularly in the West and particularly in the US, think of the continent in its most underdeveloped state. Movies kind of reinforce that at times. When there's a political crisis or if there's a coup in one country, you think that all 55 countries are having coups. If there's a flood somewhere, a drought somewhere, you're like, oh, the whole continent is ravaged by drought. And so, that's kind of where the media likes to focus. But having spent over 2 decades on the continent, what I see when I travel around is a very vibrant continent. And we've been very resilient also to the COVID pandemic. People thought it would ravage the continent. It has not. And so we're building back better and quicker. And that will be a part of the continent's trajectory in the next 12 months, 18 months, 36 months, 24, 36. And it's a great time because the continent I talked about, the African Continental Free Trade Area, is busy working to take down the intra-country borders, intra-regional borders, so that you'll have one large market that you can access if you're based on the continent. So it becomes much more attractive to companies coming in. Some of the countries on the continent are smaller, and so they have populations where people would say, well, it's too small of a population. Now you can be based wherever you're most comfortable and look at this whole 1.4 billion market now, $3 trillion market that's there. And so I like to share with people a bit more about the continent. Happy that the US government has launched the Prosper Africa initiative and shifting from kind of an aid focus to more of a trade and investment focus. That's in line to me with how key countries in Asia treat the continent, how countries in Europe treat the continent. And so you can now really leverage the comparative advantages that the US brings to the table with this public sector support. So this is the message that I'm looking forward to sharing.
All right, there you have it. I hope you're just excited about the U.S.-African trade panel just as much as I am. I'll see you this May. It's time for your product or service to be exported around the world. I'll see you in May.